Welcome everyone to Notorious Crime Stories channel, where we dive deep into mysterious criminal cases, uncovering gripping details that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last moment. If you love solving crimes and thrilling detective stories, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Notorious Crime Stories.
On New Year's Eve 1997, a young couple and dozens of other people in New Zealand attended a New Year's party on a yacht, but no one expected that this would be their last night. More than 25 years have passed, and the couple remains missing without a trace. Scott Watson, suspected as the culprit, has always claimed his innocence, as there is still a lack of direct evidence. However, the trial proceeded based on circumstantial evidence. The question of whether that young couple truly perished on that fateful night and whether Scott is truly the villain as declared by the court remains a mystery. Now let's delve into today's case. New Zealand is known for its beautiful natural landscapes and is a peaceful country, ranking second in the world only after Iceland. However, a horrifying case that occurred on a yacht in 1997 left residents living in fear and worry for a long time. It was on the last day of the year, as everyone was eagerly preparing to welcome the new year, that 17-year-old Olivia and her sister Amelia joined in the excitement. They were thrilled with their plan to throw the most memorable New Year's Eve party of their lives, surrounded by family and close friends. The party was planned to be held at Phoenix Lodge, a beautiful location accessible by water. Thus, Olivia and Amelia rented a small yacht for 24 hours, intending to drink, dance all night, and sleep on the boat. According to the plan, the two sisters arrived at Phoenix Lodge around 8 or 9 p.m., much earlier than most of the other guests. However, the party's host, Olivia, could hardly contain her excitement when Ben Smart, a 21-year-old, showed up. Ben had joined the party with a group of friends from the previous night and decided to head to Phoenix Lodge to meet Olivia. His arrival was warmly welcomed by Olivia's friends. However, by the time Ben arrived, most guests had started moving onto yachts or returning to the mainland. Amelia, Olivia's sister, also returned to the yacht by taxi, possibly to give Olivia and Ben some private space. Everything was normal until around 3 a.m., when Olivia and Ben decided to return to the yacht. When they arrived, they found the yacht overcrowded, with too many people squeezing into it. Although Olivia tried to ask the uninvited guests to leave the yacht she had exclusively rented, no one listened. To avoid conflicts with the intoxicated individuals, Olivia and Ben boarded a taxi by Guy Wallace, a bartender at Phoenix Lodge. The couple asked Guy if there was a place they could stay overnight, but he informed them that finding available accommodations on New Year's Eve would be highly unlikely. At that moment, another passenger in the taxi unexpectedly interrupted the conversation between the three and made an inappropriate suggestion. He invited Olivia to spend the night on the yacht with his group of friends. All three were surprised and seemed quite uncomfortable, but the man quickly clarified that it was just a joke and invited both of them onto his friend's boat, Blade, to continue the conversation and assure them that everything would be fine. With no concerns about being taken advantage of, Guy checked everything again. Although everyone was drunk, Ben and Olivia felt confident that they would be safe, so they agreed to board the stranger's yacht. The boat belonged to Scott Watson, a sailing enthusiast who built this yacht to attend the New Year's Eve party at Phoenix Lodge. When Amelia woke up on the morning of New Year's Day, Olivia was not there. For a moment, she thought that perhaps Olivia and Ben had returned to the mainland. So Amelia decided to return to the yacht and go home to inform her parents. That afternoon, the family still thought their daughter was out with her boyfriend and would return later in the day. However, on the morning of January 2nd, the family had not received any news about Olivia and Ben. They began to feel uneasy and decided to report to the authorities. The authorities quickly began an investigation, focusing on identifying the mysterious man who was with them and who disappeared with the couple on his yacht on New Year's Eve. This man had straight brown hair, slightly scruffy, and appeared to have lived on a boat for a long time. He had a strange demeanor and people began linking him to Scott Watson. However, a few hours before New Year's Eve, Scott was noted to be attending another party on a yacht named Mina Cornelia. There were even photos taken of him at that party. According to information gathered by the police, some people at the party felt uncomfortable with Scott's behavior, especially when he attempted to flirt with and even touch a woman. One woman at the party told authorities, "I was very angry, and so were many others. Even though it was New Year's Eve, not everyone there was as drunk as he was." According to witnesses at the scene, Scott even quarreled with a young man and made derogatory comments about people with different sexual orientations. He grabbed the man's necklace and mockingly asked if he was a girl or gay. Scott also made offensive comments regarding the man's sister's cancer, saying she would die within 2 years. Some people on the boat mentioned that by around 3 a.m., Scott looked tired, but was still trying to attend parties on other yachts. However, by then, it was quite late, and many people had already gone to sleep, with some complaining that he disturbed them. Feeling disappointed, Scott returned to his yacht, Blade, and that's when things started to get complicated. The police believed that Guy Wallace had taken Scott Watson, Ben, and Olivia to the yacht Blade, but Guy insisted that Scott was not in the taxi. The third passenger was a mysterious stranger from the bar. During several hours of interrogation, Scott was suggested to have an unclear connection with this strange man and was charged with murder. Witnesses claimed they saw a scruffy-looking man board Guy's taxi and also saw him when Olivia got in, but because it was dark, she only caught a glimpse of his figure. When asked to identify from a photo lineup, she did not select Scott Watson. The photos released by the police showed images of the suspect. On January 3rd, the police interrogated Guy Wallace and asked him to draw the boat he had seen and provide a description. It was a 2-mast sailing vessel. Meanwhile, Olivia and Ben's family in Blenheim grew increasingly anxious, suspecting that they had been kidnapped after disappearing in the Marlborough Sounds area early New Year's Day. The media quickly released the police's description of the boat based on eyewitness accounts. The last time the couple was seen was when they boarded a nearby boat, approximately 12 meters long with a white hull and a blue stripe along the side. According to the witness's memory, that boat may have had circular windows. On January 5th, Detective Rob Pope from Christchurch was assigned to the investigation after the Blenheim police requested assistance. Shortly after analyzing the information and assessing the suspects, Pope had a bad feeling about Scott when he noted Scott's previous record and the fact that he had arrived at the Furneaux Lodge party alone and left alone on New Year's Eve. During the investigation, Detective Pope interrogated Scott for hours. According to Scott's account, Pope treated him as if he were guilty, repeatedly criticizing him for not being able to pinpoint the exact time he left, even though Scott explained that he wasn't wearing a watch. The peak of the interrogation was when Pope directly asked what he had done with Olivia and Ben. Scott said he always had a feeling he would be arrested whether he did anything or not. By January 8th, Detective Pope obtained a search warrant and began investigating Scott's boat. However, it was strange that Scott's boat didn't match the sketch that witness Guy Wallace provided or what was described on television. First, Scott's boat only had one mast, while all the witnesses confirmed that the sailboat the victims boarded had 2 masts. Furthermore, Scott's boat was only about 8 meters long, much shorter than the 12-meter 2-masted sailboat described by the witnesses. Nevertheless, it seemed the police were determined to pin the crime on Scott. They even detained Scott's sister after discovering that the two siblings had gone out to sea on Scott's boat shortly after the couple's disappearance. Scott's sister was interrogated for 9 straight hours without a break. Police began questioning her about the boat and the interior decorations on Scott's boat. Sandy recalled, "I told them that those questions were strange and I needed a lawyer." However, the police hesitated and were reluctant to fulfill her request. While Scott was detained, the police didn't allow him to contact his family. Later, they informed Scott's parents that the boat had been seized for forensic testing, looking for any trace of the victims. Scott reacted defiantly to this, asserting that the police wouldn't find anything on it. However, this attitude may have landed Scott in even more trouble. By mid-January, Pope announced that they were close to charging a suspect. He said, "The owner of the recently seized boat shares many similarities with the man we believe last picked up Ben and Olivia. However, witness descriptions of the man and the boat did not match Scott Watson at all." The Watson family hired a lawyer and were advised to avoid media contact. But this became incredibly difficult as the press continually surrounded their homes day and night. The media kept mentioning Scott's name in coverage of the case, leading the public to believe he was guilty despite a lack of concrete evidence. Police even recorded private conversations between Scott's parents in which they expressed anger toward Detective Pope using insulting language. Gradually, the case became a personal matter for Pope, and he almost seemed to forget the original description of the disheveled man and the two-masted sailboat. Police even began regularly harassing the family. Security forces often conducted surprise inspections early in the morning, threatening them to disclose secrets and attempting to drive a wedge between the family and their neighbors. A family friend shared, "Detective Pop advised us to keep our distance. We have always supported Scott's parents, Scott and Sandy, but he said Scott did it. This left us shocked, wondering what was going on." Sandy was even threatened by the police with losing custody of her children if she did not side with them against Scott. At this point, Detective Pope publicly denied the witness's testimony regarding the 12-meter two-masted sailboat. He stated, "We're not dismissing the testimony, but we have to weigh that testimony against the tangible evidence we have from images of the boats we've identified." However, there was no evidence linking Scott's yacht to the crime, just Pope's instinct about the suspect. Pope claimed that there was no two-masted sailboat matching the witnesses' descriptions at Phoenix on New Year's Eve. So, could all the witnesses have remembered incorrectly? Later, the case continued to yield clues, with a witness reporting having seen the two-masted sailboat around Marlborough Sounds. After January 2nd, they distinctly remembered it was an old boat that was well maintained, with a white hull, blue stripe, and distinctive round brass windows. However, police still did not prioritize the two-masted sailboat in their investigation, even though Olivia and Ben might have been kidnapped and hidden on that boat. A more disturbing detail was that on January 2nd, a couple on a boat noticed something strange when the two-masted sailboat passed by them. A man on the boat even joked that they should follow because there was a blonde girl at the stern. After news of the disappearance spread, the man realized that the blonde girl could have been Olivia. When they reported this to the police, the response they received was that the missing young woman's hair was red, not blonde. Later, another witness reported seeing a young couple sitting motionless at the back of the boat. The couple did not communicate, did not greet anyone, and just sat there like statues. Strangely, the couple did nothing while the other man seemed very busy. Could it be that this couple had died and was placed at the back of the boat to create the impression they were still alive from a distance? Or were the victims tied up and frightened, awaiting their fate at the hands of the mysterious man? Detective Pope later stated, "Our investigation thus far suggests that the two-masted sailboat described may not exist. However, As more witnesses reported sightings of the two-masted sailboat, the public became angry because the police continued to dismiss this information. Witnesses began to feel frustrated as the police lost interest in the two-masted sailboat, even denying its existence. Reports about the boat, the scruffy man, and the young couple on the boat gradually disappeared from police records. When witnesses called back to check, they were told they had never contacted the police before. This raised concerns about the way the police were truly conducting the investigation. Police were even accused of pressuring witnesses about the boat they described and coercing them to alter their accounts to align with the investigation. Moreover, Guy Wallace, a bar worker and taxi driver, was arrested on charges of fabricating the story about the two-masted sailboat to mislead investigators. He even became a suspect in the disappearance case. In reality, Guy and Scott did not know each other, but the media painted a picture of them as possible drinking buddies, suggesting that Guy had made up the story about the two-masted sailboat to protect Scott. This only further cemented the public's belief that Scott was guilty and that Guy was trying to cover for him. Although police warned him not to speak to the media, Guy decided he needed to defend himself. He would soon be arrested, regardless of Scott's innocence or the testimony from the witnesses. Later, Guy appeared in the media, asserting that the police investigation was unreasonable and that he knew exactly what he had seen. In January of that year up until June 1998, Scott Watson was arrested. When the trial took place, it seemed not only the police and the prosecutor, but the entire community had already presumed his guilt, even without clear evidence. The prosecutor argued that Scott's boat, Play, had been thoroughly cleaned before it was seized by the police. However, the forensic expert confirmed that only 30% of the boat had been recently cleaned, which didn't align with a post-crime cleanup. Police also claimed to have found scratches on the boat's hatch, suggesting they were caused by the girl's attempt to escape. However, many doubted the validity of this detail, as there was no specific evidence supporting this theory. In a recorded conversation, Scott revealed that the scratches on Play were caused by Sandy's child before Christmas. Sandy and neighbors signed documents confirming this account, but surprisingly, the police dismissed this evidence during the trial. Another significant piece of evidence presented was the discovery of several strands of hair on a blanket from Scott's boat. A forensic expert examined the blanket and found a total of 400 hairs, but the first two tests showed no match with the victim's hair. However, on the third request for testing, the expert claimed to have found two strands that matched Olivia's, one of which was 25 centimeters long. This raised suspicions of outside interference, as there were no unusual findings in the first two tests. The expert concluded that the likelihood of the hair belonging to Olivia was 28,000 times higher than for anyone else. However, this result was still not truly convincing compared to DNA testing methods. The question arises, is this result truly reliable, or was the hair deliberately planted? Was the forensic expert under any pressure to reach such a conclusion? Scott's defense lawyer emphasized that aside from circumstantial evidence, the police had no solid proof to charge him except for the contentious hair. It all came down to suspicion. Nonetheless, the jury found Scott guilty and sentenced him to life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole after 17 years. However, Scott has yet to be granted parole. As of 2023, he has been denied parole multiple times, and all his appeals have been rejected. Perhaps Scott may never be granted parole unless he shows remorse for a crime he has always claimed he did not commit. But how can one show remorse for something they did not do? This seems to be the perspective of the New Zealand police, as this case does not merely revolve around evidence, but also on assessing Scott's character rather than convincing the public that he is indeed the perpetrator. In May 2023, Scott's appeal raised numerous questions about possible errors in the initial trial, particularly concerning forensic evidence, a crucial factor leading to Scott's conviction. The appeal mainly centers on two major issues: the accuracy of the hair evidence and the suspect identification process used by the police in the 1998 disappearance of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope. Nevertheless, the prosecution maintains that the original trial presented enough evidence and that Scott was the only one with the motive and opportunity to commit the murder. The decision on the appeal is expected to take several months, with possible outcomes including rejecting the appeal, overturning the conviction, or ordering a retrial. Currently, Scott Watson remains in custody, while the families of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope continue seeking closure. Although the bodies of the two victims have yet to be found, more than 2 decades after the case was tried, unresolved details concerning both Scott and investigative errors continue to raise questions about whether something remains unanswered in this case. Is the evidence of Olivia Hope's hair on Scott Watson's boat truly reliable? Who do you think is the real culprit in this case? Leave your opinion in the comments below for discussion.